Okay, in the words of Prodigy from Mobb Deep, to all the killers and $100 billers, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Driveline Academy podcast, the world's most dangerous youth baseball podcast, because what other youth baseball podcast is going to open with a quote from Prodigy of Mobb Deep?
None other. Yeah.
None other is the correct answer. I'm your host, Deven Morgan, Directly Baseball, the Driveline, founder of the Driveline Academy, and I'm joined, as per usual, by my brother, my partner, my co-host, Driveline Academy Assistant Director, Driveline Academy International, Man of Mystery, Jeremy Tecktiel. We got a fun one today. Let's get the housekeeping out of the way so we can cleanse our palates. Driveline Academy Flex is a thing where your player can come train at Driveline without being on a Driveline Academy team. You might be able to be on a Driveline Academy team to get some guest play opportunities. Driveline Academy Flex is our effort to make the system more flexible for players to be able to join in this process of longitudinal development, of skill development, of building the athletic engine, pairing that with the skill development underneath, and using data to inform the entire process. You get to come into the gym. You get to work with one of our trainers online. You're going to test, retest in the lab. You're going to do all the Driveline things, and it's a thing that you can do right now. So go to drivelinebaseball.com, click on the youth link, and you'll see something about Driveline Academy Flex. It might just called Flex now, but anyways, Flex is a thing. Other than that, axbat.com, code DL20 will get you 20% off. D as in, oh man, I think I killed my ChatGPT list of the ridiculous
Dynamic
Leopard 20. Dynamic Leopard 20 will get you 20% off. Because what isn't dynamic, but I mean dynamic leopard, right? Leopards are pretty dynamic. Axbat has all of your game bat needs, your training bat needs, your other bat and ball sport paraphernalia needs. You can find it at axbat.com, code DL20, Dynamic Leopard 20, DL20, get you 20% off. Youth Underload Smash Bat, best $79 you can spend on a hitting device that's actually going to make you a better hitter and not just do like this voodoo crap that is sold on Instagram where you're just like strapping some bungee cords or whatever to yourself.
Water bag, whatever.
Yeah, seen a lot of that. It's the best $79 you can spend. You just buy it and you swing it, and because it's a skinny barrel, it's really hard to hit the ball flush. It means you have to work really hard at trying to hit the ball flush. That's good hitting. It's really light, so you can move it fast. You have to pair that with the barrel accuracy as well. That's how you develop good hitters. You focus on both of those things. Try to move the bat accurately. Try to move the bat fast. Youth Underload Smash Bat, $79. Power Bat is $99 if you want to develop the discrete skill of bat speed. Buy it and swing it. Bat speed's going to go up. You run the program that comes with it. You get access to the drills that come with it. You're just going to get better bat speed, and bat speed is pretty indicative of like good hitting.
Yes.
So that's the thing you want to consider. Is that it? I think that's it.
I think that's it.
All right, man, we're fired up about this one. For anybody that joined us on last week's podcast, we spent the first 10 minutes talking about baseball movies. It was readily apparent that what we needed to do was just do a whole podcast talking about baseball movies.
Yeah. And so part of this, as I was preparing for this first pod I've ever prepared for, and watched a couple of these this week to refresh my memory on some of these, was understanding that in many, many ways, this is a large representation of coaching.
Oh boy.
And like informs a lot of current coaches and coaches over the last 30 years, because this is what they see coaches represented as in movies.
Yep, 100%. And which makes sense, because if you consider, a lot of these movies aren't going to be written by baseball coaches. Like
few of these.
We talked a lot, I think, last week or the week before last about like the Ron Polk book of baseball, right? Ron didn't write a baseball movie, right?
He did not.
So it's interesting to consider like these baseball movies as, in some way, shape, or form, it's like an amalgamation of things that like normal people know about baseball.
Right. What is a coach supposed to look like?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, not necessarily what's the best coach you've ever had.
Yes.
But like, what does the stereotypical coach look like? And especially for some of these movies that are a little more youth-based, it's telling that like this is, you know, what a coach looks like.
Yeah. And now usually when I talk about stuff on the pod, I will bring in Jeremy with no prep. And we kind of did the inverse of this on this episode, where Jeremy did a crap ton of research and I did some of my own, but like we haven't really compared notes yet. So this is all going to be fresh. The one thing I will say is I think you're 100% right in terms of like it's a conception of coaching. But the interesting thing that I think we're gonna find some meat on, and we did talk about this very, very briefly. We kind of like talked along the side of it on Wednesday, is how that's changed over time. Because some of the movies I know that we're going to talk about are very much representations of a bygone era of coaching, specifically in youth baseball, and in one of these movies in particular. So if you've heard this preamble for the last couple minutes, you're like, man, these guys aren't going to give us like the good stuff about coaching and development. I assure you, we are still going to find lanes through all of this.
Yes,
because it's very much pertinent to the entire endeavor, right? We're talking about common conceptions of how coaches act and perform, how that affects the players, and it's played out in cinema.
right.
So
And like kids see these movies, and they grow up thinking this is what it should look like.
yeah,
Right.
or they grow up going, I don't want to do that. And I thought at one point I was like, maybe I'll go through your list and try to like grade it on like a 1 to 5 in terms of like 5 being something I would definitely show to a kid to help them like love baseball, and 1 being like I'd probably shield this from them for some amount of time.
Yeah.
I didn't end up doing that, but I think we can still talk about this stuff.
That's fair.
So you've got your list basically from like 20, 25 to 1,
I
right?
pared it down to 25.
Yeah.
I apologize to the Battered Bastards of Baseball. Awesome
Fantastic
movie.
doc.
Ken Burns Baseball, one of
Yeah.
my favorites. Pelotero, awesome movie about
Miguel Sano,
Latin
right?
baseball with
Yeah.
Miguel Sano is one
Yeah.
of them. I left off any of like documentary type, like actually like not like movies, like
And you
fictionalized movies.
You also you don't have like The Fan on here, right?
Correct. I did not put the fan on.
Which is really not too much about baseball.
It is not.
Yeah.
It is not. Some of these are all very like baseball is the center of the movie.
Yeah.
For one of these, I'll make an argument that that's why this movie is so far down my list, is because baseball's not the center. But yeah, I pared her down to 25 movies.
Okay.
Okay, so do we want to start at the bottom of my rankings?
Yeah,
and-
let's go reverse. We got to go reverse.
All right,
Because
so
I know that one of the movies that is popular is in your lower like half or lower quartile. So let's
So
go
we can
25
knock off the bottom 5.
Okay.
And not we don't have to say a whole lot about them, but
Okay.
I can start there. So my bottom 5, 25th on my list is and he doesn't listen to the podcast. I do like you, Clint Eastwood, but man, Trouble with the Curve is it hurts me as a movie. I don't know that I need to say much else other than
It's Trouble with Screenwriting, I think is what you should call that movie.
trouble with screenwriting and talk to a scout one time before you make a movie about scouting.
Just once.
Just maybe.
Just one time.
24, on a similar vein, and I love this guy too, love him in Mad Men, but $1 Million Arm with John Hamm, not a quality movie.
Yeah.
Could have been a cool story to tell.
Yeah.
Not a super quality movie, but does do a decent job, I guess, depicting how slimy some agents are.
Yeah.
So there's that. 23 is Fever Pitch.
I might argue that Fever Pitch should be 26 out of 25.
Should be, yeah.
I hate that movie.
It might. It maybe shouldn't have made this list, but it is like it's about a baseball obsessed guy who's like trying to find his identity outside of that. So
Yeah.
it's like decently baseball, but yeah, that movie sucks. And like the fact that they rewrote the whole thing because they won the World Series. It probably would have been a better movie had they actually lost the World Series and the movie ended with him being a loser.
There's a lot of people that have made comparisons between Adam Sandler and Jimmy Fallon relative to the start of their careers on Saturday Night Live.
Yep, that's where it ends.
And that's about where it ends. Yeah. Because Adam Sandler, does he get
And they've been in movies with Drew Barrymore. I
right,
guess.
well, that too. But I would offer, and honey, I'm not just saying this because you love 50 First Dates. 50 First Dates is a very sweet movie.
It is.
It's not
Wedding Singer?
It's not a bad
Yep.
movie. Wedding Singer, sweet movie, not a bad movie. And in so much as it matters, Adam Sandler also has movies like Punch Drunk Love on his resume where he's phenomenal in that movie. He's phenomenal in that movie. Like,
So you didn't like Taxi with Queen Latifah?
No, I didn't. So yeah, like I think there's a pretty significant reason why Adam Sandler has the career that he does in film and Jimmy Fallon does not. You know, like just straight up. And I'm not trying to dunk on Jimmy Fallon. He does what he does, and that's great. But like Fever Pitch is a god awful movie.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah. And Taxi with Queen Latifah.
I never saw that. I remember seeing how many posters there were for that movie, and I was like, this movie's going to be terrible.
They tried to sell it. And well, and the tough thing is that like again, I'm probably playing a little bit of my film nerd card here, but I'm pretty sure Taxi was a remake of a French movie directed by Luc Besson that directed Fifth Element. And that was good because I've seen, shout out to my brother Ike, we used to just hammer movies on because we were young, we didn't have anything else to do. So like you see Fifth Element and you're like, oh, that Luc Besson guy is like a great director. So you see the other French stuff that he's done. Taxi was one of those movies. The French version is fun and exciting. It's not a great movie. It's not Citizen Kane, but it's a great movie. That Abomination with Jimmy Fallon and Queen Latifah, and like I have Queen Latifah's first album on tape. I'm a fan, right? But that's just a bad movie. Anyways, we shouldn't give that Fever Pitch any more time than it.
All right, number 22. Okay. This is where I might get controversial. I cannot stand this movie. Honestly, it would be lower for me. It's For the Love of the Game.
Yeah.
It is the most boring movie that is ostensibly about baseball. It's a love story that has baseball in it, and I understand if you really like the movie. That one's not for me. It's very boring. I wouldn't recommend it to any kids. They would not get to the end of the movie.
No, it's not objectionably bad to me. It doesn't check that box the way that like Fever Pitch does or Trouble with the Curve. But I don't know that it's really that great.
Fair.
Yeah,
it's fair.
All right. So that's the first four. Okay, let's bring us down to 21.
Mr. 3000.
See now,
Bernie Mac, love him. Movie makes me laugh, but it is not a good movie.
No, it's not. Yeah. It's not. It's I mean, look. If you've seen Bernie Mac in Kings of Comedy, for example, and you've seen the way that like he walks around, trying to sell Bernie Mac as like a really high performing athlete is like, well, wait, do you have this movie on the list? What's that Tom Selleck movie where he's a baseball player playing in Japan? Do you know what I'm talking about? I might be showing my age
but it's
here
not
a
on
bit.
the list.
Yeah. That movie to
I also
me,
didn't put like Ed on the list.
Oh, yeah. That movie, oh gosh, now I have to look up the name of it because I have my laptop.
Also, I messed up with what I sent you. It was missing one. I cut off one of mine accidentally.
Okay.
Which is literally the one that we started talking about that spurred this discussion.
Sure. Okay. Wait, well, you have to have a ranking for that.
I do, but okay, because you wanted me to send you my list without them ranked, so that you didn't know.
Okay.
And I accidentally cut one out of that list when I sent it over.
Okay, so for a little bit of context, we've gotten through the first five. What I pulled is I pulled domestic box office, I pulled Metacritic scores, and I pulled their audience score.
Okay.
So I think the audience and the critics are generally on board with everything we've just said. Trouble with the Curve is a 58 on Metacritic, 6.6 audience.
Yikes. Too many people like that movie.
The audience score's pretty sketchy. The critical, I mean, 58 is pretty bad. $24 million Arm, 56 on Metacritic. Okay, fine. You guys are right. That's not a great movie. 7.1 audience score.
Really? People like John Hamm.
Well, so this audience score thing is going to like very much make my blood boil at a certain point because my number one has a bad audience score, and I don't know how. 23 Fever Pitch is a 56 Metacritic, 6.5 audience.
There's a lot of people that love that movie.
Yeah, I mean,
they don't love baseball; they just like that movie.
Yeah. If you're looking for like a sappy story that is baseball adjacent, I suppose. But that's not the box we're looking to check. 22 Love of the Game, 43 Metacritic, real bad.
Good.
I think it's actually the worst of anything on. It is the worst of anything. Oh, actually, no. There's one that's worse. But again, 7.1 on audience score, which is really bizarre. And the Mr. 3000 this one hurts my heart as a gigantic Bernie Mac fan. Watch the Bernie Mac show. Love Bernie comedy. 57 on Metacritic, a 4 audience score. Yeah. So obviously I haven't scored that movie. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'd give it an 8, but I'd probably give it a 6. If
there are lines in that movie that you're like, oh, they actually might have used like a big leaguer as a consultant, because like some of the stuff Bernie Mac says is like, oh, I heard that in professional dugouts, and like there's no way Bernie Mac would make that joke if he hadn't had somebody like informing him a little bit.
He got coached. Okay, so now we can move into the top 20.
Okay, and because I left one out. This is number 21. So if we want to get there before we move into the top 20, this is where I'm gonna light everybody on fire.
Okay, so I'm gonna let me re-rank because we got 26 now because I need to.
Yeah, this is because Trouble with the Curve was my honorable mention. It was not number 25, and there was no honor to that mention. It was just I had to mention it because it is a movie that exists.
Yeah, it does. So number 21 is in fact,
it's Moneyball, guys.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Whoa!
Yeah. And I debated putting it above the one that's next, which is, hilarious. But, like, I've rewatched Moneyball.
Yeah.
It's fine. If the book didn't exist, or if, I didn't exist to watch it live.
Sure. There's some real lived history there for people of our age talking about the Moneyball era, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, like, even rereading the book, it's like, it's kind of crazy that, the fact that they had Zito, Mulder, Hudson, like, is just, like, not even really a thing, right? And I guess the further I go away from, in time and age, maybe, away from the book and, like, the movie, it's just, like, it's so fake and Hollywoody that, like, it's really hard for me because, like, I literally watched that happen and followed that team as it happened, and it's like, this isn't what actually really happened with this.
Yeah.
And, like, even the book to some degree has, like, Michael Lewis threw a bunch in there to, like, try to make a better story out of it than it really was. Yeah. But, like, the book is way more nerdy than the movie.
Yeah, by a ways.
Yeah.
By a ways.
Yeah. And like, for years after that movie came out, when anybody, I would meet people or whatever, and they're, oh, what do you do? And I would tell them, like, oh, like Moneyball. Like, are you like Brad Pitt? And it's like, no, I'm like Jonah Hill. Like, that's,
Yeah.
It wasn't the greatest comp for me. I love Jonah Hill, but I don't need more people to tell me I look like Seth Rogen, Jonah Hill, like that type,
Yeah. I mean, as an allegory towards, like, a man's decision to see things differently and then, like, trying to operationalize that within
I like the memes more than the movie.
I mean,
like, I love the meme where he's like the Jonah Hill on the phone meme is a great one, and the adapter die like screenshot. Like, that's better to me than, like, the movie.
Yeah, I mean the meme of, like, this is Russell Wilson,
right? And, like, Philip Seymour Hoffman, one of my favorite actors to ever live, and like, was a great Gordie Howe, but, like, or not Gordie Howe, Art Howe. But, like, yeah,
maybe not the best choice for, like, a baseball man.
Yeah, I knew I was going to get controversial with this.
Yeah,
so I might as well start here.
Yeah, no, and it's funny, like, in terms of casting, the scout rooms. Those scenes to me, like, are generally some of the best scenes in the movie, not necessarily because they're technically accurate in terms of, like, what Billy Beane was trying to suggest, but there's a lot of, it feels real in terms of the people that are in there, and some of those guys were real scouts, right? They brought in real scouts in that room. Past that point, what did you think about, like, the phone call gymnastics about, like, the trades?
I enjoy that stuff. Part of the scouting issue for me is twofold. One, I have met a couple of those guys.
Okay.
Right, and they're really good scouts.
Yeah.
And, like, because of the narrative of the book and the movie, it made them out to be way worse than they were.
Yeah, they look like dolts.
Right, and, like, I don't want to be this guy, I guess, if you don't know this or if I'm going to ruin the book or the movie for you, but go ahead and look at the drafting record that they had that year.
Yeah.
it was not good.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they changed, like, this whole thing and, like, didn't listen to the scouts and went their own way, and they drafted
didn't really go
terribly.
great.
It was bad, right?
Yeah.
Like, and, like, those scouts were the guys that got Chavez, Tejada, Zeno Mulder, Hudson, like, and that's definitely a part of why I have, because, you know, when I first read that book at 11 or 12, it was, like, life-changing for me. Yeah. And, like, the older I got and the more into baseball I got, including working in baseball, the further I guess I distanced myself emotionally from that book.
Yeah.
And then the movie is just like a worse version of the book. So it's like, it's hard for me, you know?
I mean, it makes sense, again, relative to, like, your proximity to the scouting world and in the actual truth of, like, how that went. And that's the tricky thing, right? Is that, like, you can look at the draft record and say that it didn't go great. You can look at the playoff run as it's kind of presented in the movie and say, like, okay, like, that's fine. You know, it's an underachieving team that, you know, they reach beyond their grasp, right? We've seen that story a million times and still feel like
several on this list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And feel like, okay, you know, that's great. You know, like this story about, you know, this person who's just like an iconoclast who's just like, we have to do it differently. And then there's kind of this presumption that, like, well, that person is vindicated immediately.
Right.
It's like, it actually doesn't really work that way.
Right. And some of the reasons that he was vindicated just aren't brought up. They're glossed over because they don't fit the narrative.
Yeah, for sure.
So
it is pertinent to note the movie that you just ranked 21st.
It was ranked number 1, for sure.
The highest Metacritic score.
No question,
and one.
I said I was going to get inflammatory. I don't. You weren't expecting that movie. I don't know which one you were expecting.
I was expecting another one that I know that we're going to talk about. And it's the second highest user score. So,
okay.
All right, we're off to a hot start.
Yeah.
This is
what
gets people
I knew
fired
I was gonna light some fire here.
This is what. Okay, so that's 21. So now we're breaking in the top 20.
Yeah.
What do you got?
So number 20, one spot to be clear ahead of Moneyball.
Okay.
I've got Benchwarmers.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
Because that movie makes me laugh.
That's fair.
Like, it makes me laugh, and it's about like, in its incredibly weird way, letting adults play with kids. It is about, like, inclusivity in baseball.
Yes.
And, like, there should be a way for anybody who wants to play baseball to be able to play baseball, no matter your talent level.
Yes.
And, like,
and both sides of that equation, right? I mean, again, you want to talk about a movie where the memes are going to live on, right? I am 12.
Yes, correct.
Like, that's going to live on forever.
All the time, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is brought up all the time when you are at youth baseball and you see a kid with a mustache across the field and you're like, Jesus Christ, can I get a birth certificate check?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, another feather in, you know, Rob Schneider's theatrical cap.
Sure, yeah.
Like,
and John Hader.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Coming off of Napoleon Dynamite when he was hot.
Probably ruined his career. He never did anything after that. But
yeah, it's a little tough. Well, he did the ice skating movie with Will Ferrell.
Oh, Blades of Glory. He did. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, remember when they used to pump those comedies out. Okay, so we're firmly in the top 20.
Yeah.
Benchwarmers, the lowest Metacritic score that we have of a 25, audience score of 5.2.
I knew that was going to be the lowest one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
As it should be, honestly.
Yeah.
Not a movie made for critics, you know?
No. And did a touch under $60 million domestic at the box office. I could have pulled, like, production costs, but, like, and again, but, you know, not appreciably more than Moneyball at the box office. Moneyball did 75.6 of the. I mean, and this is, I had Claude pull these, so hopefully these numbers are directionally accurate. If not, but, like, I mean, $1 Million Arm 36.4, For Love of the Game 35.2, Trouble with the Curve 35.8. I should probably just double check that on Wikipedia to make sure I'm not just regurgitating some bad LLM. But yeah, I mean, Benchwarmers is just, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. It's not a particularly good movie. All right, I don't know that these box over numbers are right because Trouble with the Curve, Claude pulled and said it was 35.8 domestically. Wikipedia says it did 49.
Okay.
So I'm
Domestically?
Yeah. Well, wait. Let's see. I don't know if
I feel like you said Moneyball was 76. That had to have made more than that.
Yeah. Let's see. Come on. Da-da-da-da-da. Well, 35.7. 35.7 is what it says. I don't know. Anyways, it doesn't matter. We're not going to pay attention to the box office anymore. Okay. All right. So Benchwarmers at 20. My kids love that movie.
It is an enjoyable, it's not a serious movie. You're not taking it seriously, but it's a fun hour and a half.
Yeah, it's a dumb hour and a half.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
All right, number 19.
Okay, so 16 through 19, I had a tough time ranking.
Okay.
The order is the order.
We're threading a needle.
Yeah. So we've got 8 Men Out.
Ooh.
And these are all movies I like.
Yes.
A lot. 8 Men Out, Pride of the Yankees,
Okay.
Bang the Drum Slowly, and 42. For different reasons.
So Pride of the Yankees, I saw. I don't even know you actually saw the whole thing. I saw bits and pieces of it when I was a kid.
My dad was a massive Lou Gehrig fan, so I watched this movie a lot growing up, and it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Gary Cooper does a really good job.
Yeah.
It's not a super rewatchable movie because it's really sad. So and if you don't know what it's about Lou Gehrig, and that story. Spoiler alert. It's a sad ending.
Yeah,
it's a very sad ending.
It's a sad
so
ending.
it's a good movie, but it's not. It is close to a documentary.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what a few of these are. Right, 8 Men Out, same thing.
Yes.
It's a story about the Black Sox scandal, and it's well acted. I think it's well put together, but it's not a movie I watch all the time because it makes me feel bad about the way those guys were treated and taken advantage of.
Yeah. Bang the Drum Slowly, I've never seen.
Great movie. Also not super rewatchable for the same reasons that the Lou Gehrig for that Pride of the Yankees isn't.
Okay.
The point of the movie, and this isn't a spoiler alert, but Robert De Niro plays a catcher who has leukemia, I think.
Okay.
Leukemia something. I want to say it's leukemia. Maybe it's something else. But he has some sort of terminal illness that he knows this is going to be his last season, and the only person who also knows that is the pitcher, and he's the catcher, and they're best friends, and he gets him through the season, and it's not a super happy uplifting movie. So
amusingly, I'm just reading now. Bang the Drum Slowly came out 2 months before Mean Streets. And Mean Streets is basically the movie that both for Harvey Keitel and Bobby De Niro took them,
and Scorsese.
Correct. It took them up another notch. This very much sounds a little bit like the baseball version of, oh my gosh, why am I flaking on the name? It's about it's not Gale Sayers.
Yeah, Brian's song. It's about Brian Piccolo, but Gale Sayers is the.
It feels a little Brian song-ish.
A movie I love and can't rewatch without a box of Kleenex.
Of course.
So as a Bears fan, especially,
Yeah.
And then 42.
So 42 and 8 Man Out. 42. I have a unique relationship with, because when my kids were kind of coming of age and they're ready to watch a baseball movie about Jackie Robinson, but also ready to wrap their heads around the disgusting configuration of our society in a post Jim Crow America, right? We saw that movie. I'm a big Jackie Robinson guy, right? I have one of Jackie Robinson's baseball cards, or one of his business cards from after he retired. Jackie's my guy. I know that the movie isn't great. I know that there's a lot of kind of some kumbaya, it's so great that we can all get along stuff that gets a little bit tough at the end of the movie. But it's still somebody finally doing a decent amount of justice to Jackie's story.
So the only reason why it's down here for me is because of that.
Yeah.
I'm the way you feel about Jackie. I also love Jackie Robinson, but I am a huge Branch Rickey nerd.
Right.
I adore Branch Rickey.
Right.
And I don't know if adore is the right word. I am fascinated by Branch Rickey.
Yeah.
And who he was as a person, what he did to the game of baseball.
I mean, single-handedly responsible for basically the minor leagues and the configuration that we have them right now. Right?
Yes. For sure. First person to ever hire a statistician. Like he is the reason baseball is the way it is today.
Yeah.
And for good and bad, right? Like he was also a large reason of why they had to do like why Marvin Miller came in and made a union and all that, because like he was an absolute cheapskate. And like, there's even he wouldn't totally disagree that this was largely motivated by selling tickets and stuff like that. And like, look, he was doing it for moral reasons, and he felt strongly about it morally, but it also didn't hurt that he stood to make a decent amount of money off of this if it went well.
Hot take about 42 real quick. I don't love Harrison Ford's portrayal of Brent Rickey. I don't love it.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's kind of whatever.
Yeah, that's fair. Somebody probably could have done it better. It wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't the best fit.
Yeah.
Bozeman's great. Chadwick is great.
Yeah. Like, again, I showed my kids 42, and I'm pretty sure the Black Panther came out like shortly thereafter. Danny got a cut on his finger, and we had. I don't think they were Black Panther Band-Aids. I think it was just a regular Band-Aid.
Okay.
And he put a Band-Aid on his finger, and he put a face on it, and he named it Chadwick.
Elite.
And he kept that flippin' Band-Aid on his finger for like well past the point that he needed it.
Yeah.
To the point that it was just like, oh, he's just got, Chadwick is on the finger, because he was like 7 or 8 or whatever. I mean, that's
right by my apartment.
Yeah.
There's a giant graffiti mural of Chadwick.
Oh, yeah.
With a bunch of different roles, and like Jackie Robinson's on there, and I see it all the time, and it's great.
Way.
Yeah, I wish I could rank it higher, but like I did feel like they kumbaya'd some stuff, and like it made it seem like it wasn't as miserable as it was.
Yeah.
So that's 16 through 19 for me.
And 8 Men Out, man. I really like that movie. I don't know that I would rank it any higher, but just to who kills in that movie is John Cusack.
John Cusack, yeah,
John
absolutely.
Cusack is a legend.
It's wonderful
in that movie, man.
Yeah.
He's so good,
Yeah.
so good. Okay, I'm nothing like terribly divergent. Weirdly, Pride of the Yankees actually old enough that I can't find a Metacritic score for it or a user score. Bang the Drum Slowly 80 on Metacritic, which is one of the higher ones that we've gotten here. 8 Men Out is a 71 with a 7.1 audience. So like we're all, we're kind of in the ballpark here.
Yeah. I feel. When did 8 Men come out?
1988 is what.
And when was Field of Dreams?
Field of Dreams. Why is it not showing on my list? Do we not have Field of Dreams?
That was the one that started this whole conversation that I left off my ranking that I sent you.
Oh, you left it. It isn't on here.
That's the one that wasn't on there.
Okay, all right. I want to say Field of Dreams feels very
it's around
1990, 1991.
Like right after that. And I feel like 8 Men Out would have had a longer shelf life if a movie about Shoeless Joe, or heavily portraying Shoeless Joe, didn't come out right after that. That was more popular.
Field of Dreams came out in '89, so it was
literally
right
after. So I feel like 8 Men Out kind of got kneecapped a little bit there by in its popularity by that.
Okay, all right. So Field of Dreams. Just because we're gonna reference this here. Metacritic score of 57.
On Field of Dreams,
pretty low.
That is very low.
User score 7.2. So we're gonna come back around to this.
We'll get there.
Okay, so now we're in the
top 15.
Yeah, top 15. Okay.
Number 15, The Rookie, with Dennis Quaid.
What did we have as 16?
16 through 19 was Pride of the Yankees, Bang the Drum Slowly, 8 Men Out, and 42.
Okay, got it.
So 15 was The Rookie, with Dennis Quaid.
Yeah.
Wanted to rank this lower, if I'm being honest, and like struggled with not ranking it below the other four. So like it's kind of right in that group. The reason it got the bump up for me was because it is more youth related, and development is not linear related, right? And like yeah, I guess the message from that movie is just go through like a 15-year no-throw phase, and you're going to come back throwing hard.
Yeah, because that's just how that works. Just
Yeah.
with zero stimulus,
Yeah.
you're just going to start throwing fuzz.
Well, I identified that with that movie in a certain way because I don't know if you have seen it recently or remember, but like the whole thing is he's trying to get the most out of his high school baseball team, and they don't really care.
Yeah.
And he tells them that like if you guys start winning, I'll go to a tryout. And like as a coach, I have made that promise.
Yeah.
And had to then play Fortnite with the kids or let them sleep over at Driveline or whatever stupid thing that I have promised. Like I identify with that as Dennis Quaid's character saying like, yeah, if you guys win like the district or the conference or whatever, like, yeah, I'll go to a tryout. Like totally, but like, yeah, they're not going to do that. And I never have to like actually pay that bill. And then,
but sometimes
if only me playing Fortnite against 14-year-olds turned into like being a professional Fortnite player.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, good, it's a good baseball adjacent movie with like a through line of baseball stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And like a parent who was way too hard on their kid, and like him trying to change that for his son.
Yeah.
So like there's some good youth adjacent stuff, which is why it got the bump up for me. But like, I don't think it's a better movie than the four I just listed.
72 on Metacritic, 6.8 user. So we're all kind of in the same ballpark. I mean, the only real outlier there is Bang the Drum Slowly. Yeah. So we're all in the same place. Okay, so number 14.
Number 14 is Everybody Wants Some. And I wanted to rank this higher, but it's not that much of a baseball. Like it is a baseball movie, but it's much more of like a Dazed and Confused, but they're all baseball players.
Yeah.
Right? It's like that kind of thing. But I enjoy that movie.
I mean, it's Richard Linklater,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, you know what you're going to get with one of his movies, right? He's going to take you to like this bygone teen adjacent era, young life adjacent era, and we're going to be grappling with like the freedoms and the responsibility and the agents of change and all this other stuff.
And Glenn Powell. First Glenn Powell that I had ever seen. So that was that's 14.
80. Hold on, is that right? 85 on Metacritic.
It's a great movie, and it was not. I feel like it. What was that? 2013.
2016.
2016. I feel like not that many people saw that movie.
Yeah, that's a legit 85 on Metacritic. 7, only a 7 on user score, which is a little bit interesting. Box office. Well, I don't even know if this is right, but if it's right, $3 million.
Yeah, I feel like not a lot of people saw that movie or even know it exists.
Yeah,
but I enjoy that one.
Box office 5.4 on Wikipedia, so it did not make a lot of money.
No, it did not.
That's tough. All right, number 13.
This is where I probably will piss some people off as well. Not as much as the Moneyball thing.
I mean, anything getting close to the top 10 there are going to be some feelings.
Bull Durham. Yeah, I have Bull Durham ranked pretty low.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. State your position.
I think it shows a relatively toxic way to get the best out of an athlete.
I mean, he could relatively's doing a lot of work.
Relatively's doing a lot of work. He literally, whenever he shakes him off, he just tells the hitter what's coming so that he gives up a tank and then goes out to the mound and makes fun of him. And like, we just had a Twins player get released for telling the other team what was coming.
Yeah.
And then we've got like a very popular baseball movie where like the catcher does it and like the pitcher doesn't get mad at him.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, oh yeah, no, yeah, tell him what's coming. Like I shook you off. That's on me.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like the old school, the first time they meet, let's chest up and get into a fight.
Sure.
Because I'm like,
sure,
I'm the old school coach who's going to teach you how to play baseball the right way.
Yeah.
And like, even when I didn't watch this movie when I was that young because there are some themes in this. But like, the first time I saw the movie, I was just like, I don't really like Crash Davis. Seems like kind of a dick,
kind of a toxic dude.
Yeah, like I never vibed with him, but like he got the most out of Nuke.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's tough. I obviously saw Bull Durham, many years ago, right? And at the time, it was just like, it was the baseball movie that had a lot of sex stuff in it.
Yes.
Like
I said, there were themes.
up,
I did not watch it when I was, young.
Up, yeah, I mean, disclaimer for anybody that listens to the show.
And like, I will say, of the 12 that are above them, every one of these is a movie that, well, I guess all but 2, kind of, were movies that I watched as a kid. And like that have stuck with me. Like, these are my rankings, guys. Like, that's going to make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Crash Davis, not really the most likable player. Nuke Lelouch, also not really the most likable player.
No, but a real archetype.
Yeah.
Right? Like I throw really hard, like I can do whatever I want. Yeah. And real talk, a lot of guys like that in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
And most of those guys don't ever make it to the majors because they don't figure out how to be a teammate and how to like buy into that system.
Yeah.
And like this movie is about getting him to do that so that he can get to the major leagues.
Right.
I just don't love the way that it's done.
Yeah.
Like it's not the message per se that like you got to buy into the team thing and be a team player to eventually get that call up. You can't just do it on talent alone. You have to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
I just don't like the way we get there necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, it's from that era of movies where like, you can have like a relationship that starts with a fist fight. Like we're going to start a relationship. Well, I'm just going to punch you in the mouth. And then somehow like we work through it. Yeah. Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Your mileage may vary, but like most of the people that have like getting in fist fights and stuff, like it doesn't generally move that way.
Yeah.
But that was very much like that's for sure like a writing device.
Yes.
From that era,
100%.
like the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah. Like,
that was, that is a thing in baseball.
Yeah.
Right? Like those guys, I won't name any names because, we're not that dangerous.
Yeah. The statute hasn't particularly expired.
But I literally know people who were Crash Davis and people who were Nuke Lelouch.
Yeah.
And the people who were Nuke, the couple that I encountered are still playing Major League Baseball today.
Yeah. I have a feeling about one of them.
And the Crash Davis role was like a real thing. And like most of the guys I knew that were in that role hated being in that role.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And like in the movie, Crash kind of hates his life.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Right. And like that's it. It sucks that's like hey man, you're upper 20s. Well, Crash was older than that, but like you're upper 20s in AA, AAA, or you're even in your 30s in AA, AAA. Hey man, let's be honest, you're not going to make the major leagues.
Yeah.
So like your new role is to babysit the young kid who we've got a lot invested in and teach him how to be a man.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that sucks. That's not what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And like, but that is a real thing that still happens to this day.
And interesting that's a thing that like the coaching staff can't help with.
It's a different message coming from a coach and a player. Yep. Because the coaching, it almost always starts with a coach trying to do it at lower levels of minor leagues. And if that hasn't gotten ironed out by the time they're probably AA, I would say, maybe high A, but probably AA.
Yeah.
That's when you start to see them getting, hey man, your new roommate is this 36-year-old who's got 1,000 minor league plate appearances.
Yeah.
And like, it is still a thing that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking about a player that we won't name, but a kid that like both of us have been around for years and years. We know the type of talent and we know the talent that he has. We know that he could do some pretty cool things, but like it's contingent upon him kind of getting the message. And I know you've tried to send that message. I know I've tried to send that message. And now it's like, it appears as though maybe the people that are getting through to him is this combination of like all of that and also his teammates.
Right. And that's, but they're doing it for the most part in a positive way.
Yes. Yeah, which is different than, what you see played out in Boulder.
Right, like, hey man, you don't show up, you don't do XYZ for the team. I'm just going to tell this hitter what's coming and ruin your outing here. And like, yeah, so that's why it's 13 for me.
Okay, all right, fair. All right, number 12.
Number 12 is The Natural.
Ooh, buddy.
The only reason it is number 12 is I think this movie doesn't hold up as well, that I think it's too boring. I don't think the kids today, you could show them The Natural and they would be as enthralled as I was when I was 10 and watched it for the first time.
I mean, I can tell you my lived experience growing up, raising two kids in my household that love baseball a lot. Try to get them to sit down and watch The Natural. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
And, I think that the most into it they got was actually in the Babe Ruth scene.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, they just kind of tuned out.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure that they finished the movie. Yeah.
And that's the only reason it's 12 for me, is because I think if we're viewing it through that lens, it doesn't hold up as well as I wish it did.
So, interestingly enough, Bull Durham 73 on Metacritic, Natural 61. So more people share your opinion on the Natural there. Audience scores identical for the two of them. So yeah, interesting. All right, so we're getting close to the top 10.
Yeah, number 11.
Close.
This was in the top 10 until I rewatched it this week.
Oh, I think I know where you're going.
And I struggled between this and number 10 because I didn't want to drop it all the way out of the top 10, but it had been a while since I saw Bad News Bears. I have never and will never watch the Billy Bob Thornton remake. There's no reason to. But this movie, I felt like the impact of Walter Matthau on Little League coaches from the late 70s through my childhood, it was that's the archetype, right? That's what a Little League coach is. Rewatching that movie for the first time in years this week, I was like, oh my God. This is directly led to a lot of kids quitting baseball because their coach tried to be Walter Matthau in this movie.
A whole lot of out-of-pocket dialogue in that movie.
I mean, the racism is off the charts. I did not remember a little kid being that racist in the movie, but there it is. It's there.
Racist and sexist.
And sexist. Yep. No, you're correct. He was a bigot in all forms, right?
Yeah. I mean, again, showing Bad News Bears to the kids for the first time, it's like the first time you show them a movie where there's cursing.
Yeah.
They kind of feel like they get let into the club.
Right.
Where it's like, hey, there's this other language, and all the other time we've told you you can't say that stuff, but hey, for an hour and a half you get to kind of be there, right?
Yep, you get to be in that world.
And I remember the first time that you saw the any of the seminal 80s, early to mid to late 80s comedies, of which there are a ton. Animal House being probably the first big one. It was just okay, now you get to say the bad words. And I put that movie on, Bad News Bears on for my kids, and I was like, oh well, this will kind of be their entry point into this. Yeah. I was like, oh no, there's a bunch of other stuff that comes with this that in the 20 years of haze since I had seen it, I completely forgot about. Yeah. And then it's just the rampant misogyny and rampant racism and kids smoking. I mean, it's just it's wild. It is a wildly out of pocket movie.
The thing I remembered most before watching it was I felt this way as a kid. Is it's Kelly Leak is supposed to be the cool kid.
Yeah,
and he's smoking cigs and drinking at 12, and you're that. And I remember when I was a kid, I was it's not cool though.
No.
So that was the thing I remembered was the Kelly Leak piece. But I did not remember the super racist little kid on that team.
Yeah.
Who just constantly is dropping racial slurs.
So wildly out of pocket. But then at the end of it,
I was gonna say the reason I had trouble dropping it all the way out of the top 10, and much further than that was, you do get inclusivity, right? Hey, might not be the right way because he's this team sucks. I need better players, but you got a girl on the team, which I can only imagine for the 70s how crazy that was. And you don't see it that frequently now, let alone back then. That was probably totally unknown. You've got a kid in Kelly Leak who just needs to be included and just wants to be included.
Yep.
And that piece is kind of nice. And then you have the end of the movie where they're playing I think it was the Yankees, right? It's whatever. So they're playing this team, and the coach's son is pitching, and his dad is screaming at him, and he gets a ground ball back to him and just holds on to the ball.
Yeah.
And lets the kid run all the way around the bases. All of his teammates are tackling him, trying to get the ball from him, and he's like, no, I'm going to intentionally lose this game to stick it to you, my dad.
Yeah.
Which holds up, rough parenting in youth sports. And Walter Matthau, upon seeing this, takes out all of his best players for the bottom half of that inning and puts in all of his subs that he has basically been refusing to play the whole movie because they're not good enough.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, he realized that the winning isn't the point here. Because, like, honestly, before I went and rewatched it, I would have, if you had asked me, I would have told you the Bad News Bears won at the end of that movie.
Yeah.
They didn't. And I didn't even remember that they didn't win at the end of the movie because it feels like they win because the end of the movie is they understand that winning is not the most important thing that they can do on that field. And it's like they all love baseball more than they did at the beginning of the summer. And, like, that's – and I was like, look, it took a lot to get to the end, a lot of bad stuff to get there, including her saying, like, I can't throw, my arm's cooked, and they just shove it in some ice in the dugout and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's some real 1970s right there for you there.
But, like, the end point that we get to is not a terrible place.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's weirdly, it lands in the right
It lands in the right
direction. All right, we're in the top 10, my guy.
All right, so number 10 is Major League.
All right.
Could have had it higher.
All right.
But, like, that was the one. I guess there is one other that just, like, in my top 10 that I will go into it when we get there. But this is the one that I didn't really see as a kid, right? This is also has some themes that are a little older. Yep. And, like, I like this movie. It is a caricaturization of baseball.
Yeah.
It's really goofy at various points and, like, doesn't
exceptionally.
It at points it almost feels like a kids baseball movie with some of the stuff that they do.
And then
right, it goes the other direction.
Yeah.
But, like, still a great movie. I still enjoy it, so it's in my top 10. But, like, the 9 above it, I have something more special for.
So interesting. Between our last two, Bad News Bears 84 on Metacritic, which I believe is the second highest out of everything that we have here. Yes. 8.2 audience, which to me probably says something about the age of the people that are ranking movies on
100%.
Metacritic. Major League, a 62 on Metacritic, but a 7.6 on audience.
Yeah, that tracks.
And for me personally, I think if I was looking for most fun baseball movie or baseball adjacent movie, I think number 1 for me is a movie that we haven't covered yet, but number 2 is probably Major League.
Okay.
If I want to just have fun watching a baseball movie, I'll turn on Major League.
Fair enough.
Right?
Yeah.
Like there's enough. It's a diverse cast of characters. There's all these different baseball archetypes. And again, the memes live on.
Yeah.
Right. The memes live on. We have the Jobu.
I have Jobu in my dugout.
In the dugout. I do think that Major League is for me. It's close to my favorite, just fun turn on a baseball movie type of experience.
Totally fair.
And so incredibly different than like the representation of the game in Moneyball.
Yes.
And it's like I think there's some things in Moneyball that they got preposterously wrong, right? But some of it about like the business nature of the game, I think they did get right.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
You don't really see a lot of that play out in Major League. It's very much just like the ownership hates us. They want us to be terrible, so let's band together, right?
It's the producers.
Right.
But with a baseball team.
Right. And it's funny that like, you go from Major League, which is not technically accurate in terms of like the function of teams,
right,
but it's fun.
Right.
It's like, honestly, if I turn on YouTube TV and I'm like just like clicking through and I want to see it and Major League is on, overwhelmingly I'm going to check in and like see what part of the movie.
Yeah, I'm probably going to watch it. I'm going to sit and watch it.
Are we coming up to the point where he like runs onto the field because he slept? Are we coming on to the end of the movie? Are we coming into like the locker room scenes of like Jobu and the chickens and everything? Like, I'm going to want to see where the movie is.
Yeah. I would make the argument that the White Sox probably should have watched that movie a bunch of times this year.
Yes.
And maybe lived it more. It would have made their season a lot more fun.
Yeah. I'm not doing that with Moneyball.
Correct. Correct.
I'm no shot.
Yeah.
I got to be in like a real specific headspace.
And that's a movie that was like aiming for an Academy Award.
Yes,
as opposed to
absolutely.
one that's like, I'm just going to make people laugh.
Yeah, and I don't know. I wonder if Hollywood has kind of lost something about how to make like a fun baseball movie.
Oh, 100%. Because any of these are old.
No, I mean everything that we have.
The most recent one is 40. No, is Moneyball or 42 actually.
The average of all of our remaining stuff, if you include Field of Dreams, is 1996.
Yeah.
So we've forgotten a little bit something how to make a fun movie. All right, so we're in the inside of the top 10.
Okay.
Number 9.
Number 9, and this is actually one of my favorite movies ever. But it is number 9 here because it's very different than the other 8 on this list, or definitely 7 of the 8 on this list.
Okay.
It's Sugar, which is probably one you did not know.
I didn't even know that this existed.
There's never been a more real, accurate depiction of Latin American baseball.
I gotta watch this.
And a Latin American baseball player. It is.
Yeah.
To know what you're in for, it is relatively heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But like, it is real.
So I gotta see this movie. 82 on Metacritic, 7.3 in audience. And the interesting thing,
It's in Spanish.
Okay.
Like heavily in Spanish.
But the interesting thing, directed by Anna Bodner and Ryan Fleck. You know what else they directed? Captain Marvel.
Interesting.
They directed a movie that made over $1 billion at the box office, and then they directed this.
Well, this came way earlier.
Yeah. But like that stuff is always interesting to me. Like the directorial path is very, very interesting.
There's
'Cause-
never been a non-documentary, and it's not just Latin players, but like, I've never watched a non-documentary baseball movie that feels more real and goes over like the life of a minor league player,
Yeah.
the ups and the downs of a life of a minor league player and what they have to go through. And like, I don't know if I'd recommend if you have like you, a child who really wants to do this. This is like when I was really young, I really wanted to be a firefighter.
Yeah.
And my dad showed me Backdraft, and I was like, "No, I'm good. I'm good. This is maybe that for baseball players."
Okay. All right.
And it's a wonderful movie, but like very, very different from everything else that's left on this list.
Okay.
But I had to put it in the top 10 because like it is that good.
Amusingly, the guy that plays Miguel in Sugar, they also cast him in Captain Marvel. They gave him a role.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. I need to like literally look up who this character is.
It's going to be hard for you to find Sugar. I
Bad
have a
streaming
copy.
options. Okay.
I have a copy.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely got to see that. Again, 82 on Metacritic. 7.3 audience score. Like that I got to see that movie. All right. Number 8.
Angels in the Outfield.
That's super fair.
Yeah.
That's super fair.
Of the ones that are left, it's my least favorite.
Yeah.
But it's a great movie, and it's like it really depicts like baseball as an outlet.
Yeah.
And I really like that about that movie.
Third lowest Metacritic score of any movie we have here.
Really?
Which I think says a lot to me about critics and their inability to consider audience. And
Yeah, that movie is
maybe-
made for kids.
Maybe that's not the job, like maybe that's not the job. But like, I mean, you and I have had this discussion off podcast. Miami Vice is probably my second favorite Michael Mann movie. It's my second favorite Michael Mann movie because I grew up watching Miami Vice. And we finally got a chance to see it on screen, and it felt way more real than the show ever did, but like thematically nails it. Like I remember Friday nights getting allowed to watch Miami Vice when I had every other weekend with my dad.
Yeah.
Because that was like adult NBC television on Friday nights.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, I got a chance to do this thing.
Yeah.
Angels in the Outfield is very much aimed squarely at kids. So to whatever degree,
And specifically kids who have lost a parent.
yes, like it so nails that thematically that I think it's very telling that like Metacritic score 44, audience score 6.7.
Yeah.
Like it's got the third lowest Metacritic score, but one of the above average on this list in terms of audience.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 7.
Field of Dreams.
Okay, let's get into
is
it.
coming in at number 7 for me.
Let's get into it.
And like literally, we stopped recording the podcast, and I walked out, looked at my phone, and saw James Earl Jones had passed.
Oh yeah,
And it was just like, oh man, that is just awful timing. Field of Dreams is a wonderful movie. I don't know that it is a great baseball movie.
I'm going to read you a quote about Field of Dreams. I'm not sure if I should air this guy out or not. I won't. There's a famous guy that runs like a daily baseball blog, like a mailing list type of deal. He's been a commentator online. He's like, I still follow him. He's got interesting takes. Quote, this is not me saying this. I just want to be very clear about this because I am sappy enough that like I will cry if I sit down and watch the whole thing of Field of Dreams.
No question. Yeah.
10 out of 10, lock it in. However, this is such a wild take. Field of Dreams is transparent, conservative propaganda. Also, people don't like it for its merits. They like it because they're projecting their own feelings toward their fathers onto it, and the filmmakers constructed the movie that way by design.
Okay, so I agree with the second half.
Yes.
Like, especially after my dad passed.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I would give anything to play catch with him.
Yep.
Like, 100%. Like, I definitely identify with that piece of the movie.
Yep.
The first part of that, I don't really understand, other than, I guess, like, farming.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm him and I'm taking that perspective, then I suppose the suggestion that it's conservative propaganda has to do with like, man, I feel like I'm treading in dangerous waters here in our very politically neutral podcast. But I suppose if I have to finish this thought, just like I'm contractually obligated to finish this thought, that my guess would be that you would say that Field of Dreams is like conservative propaganda in so much as it like weaponizes a version of America that probably never existed for anything other than a very small amount of people, and that there's enough in the ether there in terms of like the American landholder, right, who is being confronted with some amount of change, and that change displaces their feeling of how they were like their stratification in society.
Sure.
And I'm this isn't my point.
Okay, so it's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah.
I don't know I don't know if you're going to know the answer to this question. When all the old ball players come out of the cornfield, is there anybody from the Negro Leagues? Or is it all like old white players? Like, is that what he's trying to get at?
I will heat check myself, but I'm pretty sure everybody. It's just a bunch.
I would have said
ball
no,
players, right?
but
yeah,
but like, it's the guys his dad grew up talking about.
Yeah,
right. Like, yeah. I don't know if I agree with that statement, but I definitely agree with the end of it.
Yeah. I think
this isn't a baseball movie. It's a how to cope with loss movie.
Yeah.
And like how to get closure.
I'm trying to find a list of like who everybody came out.
Not Ty Cobb. They didn't want to invite him. Famous line.
Yeah. There are quite a few of other unnamed players that use the field. Specifically, one player that was not one of them was Ty Cobb. As Joe Jackson explained in the film, Ty Cobb wanted to play, but none of us could stand that son of a bitch when we were alive, so we told him to stick it. That's a famous quote.
And then the classic Ray Liotta laugh right after.
Yeah. And I know that like the last time we talked about Ty Cobb on the pod, I got some people that
we got an email.
Like,
yep. And I have heard that there's stories on both sides there.
To quote Deezus from the Deezus and Mero podcast, you got to hear both sides. And there is the side where Ty Cobb had someone write a biography of him that was like basically leaned into all the terrible things about Ty Cobb. There's also a lot of just anecdotal accounts of Ty Cobb living up to his reputation, and we can probably leave it at that. I'm not of the Ty Cobb image restoration society.
No.
I kind of don't care either way.
Right.
You know, like, yeah. Okay. Top 6. We're getting close to top 5. What didn't make the top 5 cut is the big question here.
And this one hurts me, but when we get to my top 5, it's it's specifically towards movies I loved as a kid, right?
Yes.
And they're like mostly youth related.
Yep.
Number 6 is once again one of my all-time favorite movies. It's 61.
Yeah. Made for TV movie, but
HBO. It's not TV. It's HBO.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
You know, we're gonna repeat their tagline here. It's not TV. It's HBO.
That's right.
Made with care.
Yes.
By a raging Yankee fan, Billy Crystal, and I will go to my grave that I don't think any movie has been cast better.
No.
Thomas Jane and Barry Pepper as Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris. Unbelievable casting.
Yeah, I mean, and they don't look out of place.
No,
because it's been a while since I've seen it, but I don't remember
the baseball playing parts of it. They look like, I believe both of them played college baseball.
Okay,
so like they look like baseball players. The actions look good, but they also look so much like the people they're playing that is a hard thing. Like I struggle with if we're talking like Pride of the Yankees, he looked like Gary Cooper. Right?
Yeah,
Gary Cooper looked like Lou Gehrig, but like. If we're talking 42, he did not look like a Branch Rickey. They could try, but like he didn't really look like Branch Rickey. Moneyball, those guys like Chris Pratt doesn't really look like Scott Hatterberg. The guy who played Carlos Pena could not have looked less like Carlos Pena.
No,
like there's like that frustrates me. Like, can't we do a little better casting? And 61 just absolutely nails it.
Yeah.
I love that movie. And it goes through the pressures, like the outside pressures of that, and, you know, guys that just want to play and like don't have no interest in the adoration or hatred that comes from fans while they're playing. And it's like, there's a point in the movie where they tell Roger Maris, like, you don't get a choice anymore. You're too good.
Yeah.
Like you have to, like, this isn't a negotiable thing. You have to be out there.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I just love that movie.
It's interesting to consider that posture of men who play this game at a professional level who didn't want that.
Right.
Because, in today's game, I mean, look, as soon as Jazz Chisholm got signed by the Yankees, Yankee fandom was all up in arms about, he's got a chain on, and is he going to wear his hat the right way, and what's he got hanging out of his pocket, and all this other stuff that, like, to me, basically just sounds like it's a dog whistle for racism. I mean, I guess I just said about 5 minutes ago this podcast was, like, relatively politically neutral, but I'm not going to be neutral about that one. Sorry. We opened the quote up with, like, a Mob Deep line, like, I don't know what you expect from me here. But it is interesting because you do see that now from, to whatever degree there were guys of that era, of the Roger Maris era, who had that posture. And then, trying to plot the through line to like that, to free agency, to Reggie Jackson, to Jose Canseco, to A-Rod's $200 million deal, to now. In the way that the game is played now, like, it's just different. It's fundamentally different. And I think at large, a lot of like the superstars in our game now are just kind of tacitly aware that, like, that's a thing that they need to do.
Right.
Like Bryce Harper is going to be in the field and he's going to have to get mic'd up during the game.
Right.
And he's going to talk to the guys on the broadcast crew about, like, when he did Saturday college football and like what his guessing record was, right? And they're going to talk trash about that type of stuff. Like, it's just kind of part of it.
Yeah.
Shohei has to do Shohei stuff.
Right.
He has to do the national film commercials. He has to be the face. He has to do that stuff. But relative to the information age in Roger Maris's time, wasn't the thing.
No, but it was, a big part of that movie is their relationship with the reporters.
Yes.
And like...
And how they controlled...
Right. And like you have the one reporter who hates Roger Maris and is going to write negatively about him every day and then constantly throughout the movie be like, I don't know why he doesn't like me. Or like, why doesn't he smile more? It's like, because you write terrible things about him every day that fans then scream at him and whatnot. And I couldn't put it in the top 5 because I don't quite think it fits this this discussion, but I do love that movie and wanted to give it its flowers.
Well, and again, doesn't exist on Metacritic because it was an HBO, but 86% of Rotten Tomatoes, 90% in their popcorn meter for users. So, like, incredibly high regarded.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
All right, we're in the top 5.
All right.
This is where the rubber meets the road, my friend.
Yeah. So,
I have a guess for what your number 5 is going to be.
Go ahead and guess.
I think it's League of Their Own.
It is A League of Their Own.
How well do I know my guy?
It is. Number 5 is A League of Their Own. Love this movie so much.
How do you not love that movie?
And like the inclusive, but again, not really a baseball movie.
Yes.
Right? In a lot of ways, it's a movie about people dealing with the war and
Yes.
like the impacts that had on our society. But there's just some wonderful stuff in that movie that makes that movie so rewatchable to me all the time.
Says a lot about coaching too.
Says a lot about coaching, and he like learns, I have to care about them.
Yes.
Right? And like, you compare that character to Walter Matthau.
Yeah.
Pretty similar at first.
Yeah.
And he just makes that transition a little faster than Walter Matthau does.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that movie.
Great movie. Weirdly, the highest ranked on Metacritic of any of our remaining 5.
Not that weird. It's a great movie.
Well, I know, but it's just funny to me, again, relative to what we were just talking about like critics and some of these movies. I think they
that
skew a little
that
bit
one
younger,
movie might be the only one in this entire list that like you could get a non-baseball fan to watch and really enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, my grandparents had a copy of League of Their Own.
Right. Like some of these movies are going to be real difficult to get a non-baseball person to watch them. Not that one. That one's a relatively. I mean, they made the Amazon show about it, and it was like a follow up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's. And the only reason it's not in my top 4 is because these 4 are movies that are my childhood.
Well, I will say about League of Their Own. Justine Siegel, who's the founder of Baseball for All, had I think she had a lot to do with the Amazon series that they ended up doing. It's part of the reason that I still have it like bookmarked on my list of things that I want to see.
It was great. I mean, when we had the Baseball for All event up here, they had a Rockford Peach.
Yes, they did. Like literally
it was awesome.
One of the players.
Yeah. Getting to meet her was really, really cool.
Yeah, no, they had one of the players at the Baseball for All event that Cora and I went to back in Aberdeen, Maryland, 3.5 years ago or something like that. And I mean, I've probably told this story on the podcast in the early episodes. Cora and I definitely talked about when we did the pod when she came on. It was just she and I, but. We were out there at the Ripken complex. It's a great complex, a whole bunch of baseball fields, a whole bunch of stuff, and in the stadium where I think is it the Yankees minor league affiliate, the Iron Pigs.
The Lehigh, I think, are they the Yankees? Maybe, I don't know. The affiliates changed.
They got an affiliate right there. And when we had the introductions, they did it at the big stadium. And we got there, on Sunday night, met all these girls from all over the country that were going to be on this Driveline team that, we had just put together. And then we got a chance to walk out onto the field with all of the teams. And Justine can heat check me about this, but I'm pretty sure that there were somewhere north of like 300 girls on that field. And, raising a daughter who played baseball and all the variants of the experience that she had there, finally getting a chance to be in that configuration was absolutely life-changing. Yeah. I mean, that trip is just one of those where I don't really remember a lot about how the games went, but getting a chance to know those other girls that me and Coach Louisa, Academy OG, Coach Louisa Gauchi, who's in the bigs, getting a chance to coach those girls that weekend and have that time with my daughter, and finally get a chance to show her that this is a thing that it can look like, was tremendously just heart filling. And again, I mean, she and I watch League of Their Own, I don't know, 4 or 5 years before that. So getting a chance to really see it come to life, man, was really awesome.
Yeah.
69 on Metacritic, 7.8 user. So
I'm
pretty
surprised it's only 69.
little low on the
I would
on the
feel
credit
like
score,
that
actually.
would be.
Yeah, it's weird that doesn't crack into the sevens, given some of the other stuff that has. All right, top 4.
All right, number 4, Little Big League.
Yeah.
I love this movie. It is, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's not like the normal baseball movie where like the kid is playing. The kid becomes the GM of the team, or the owner of the team, and then installs himself as manager when he fires the original manager.
I think I liked this movie more than I liked Angels in the Outfield when I was a kid.
I did. I for sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this was like, it spoke uniquely to me because he was my kind of nerd.
Yes.
And like, we'll talk about one of the other movies that is on this list, but like, I felt like that could be me.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I felt like that could be me, and I enjoyed watching. And like, I haven't rewatched this movie actually in quite some time, but like the way he figures out how to get the players to buy in, is like a really crucial part of that movie, because he starts trying to be an asshole.
Yes.
And like be a hardliner, and like they're not paying any attention to him. And it's like, once he shows them how much he knows and how much he cares about them, and like he just wants them to get better, then they start buying in a little more. You have the classic, them trying to figure out the math problem on the whiteboard. I just love that movie. It's a great movie.
Whole bunch of Seattle Mariners in it.
Whole bunch of Seattle Mariners. So another reason I love this movie, for those of you who don't know, I have strong ties to the state of Minnesota. It's where I went to college. And Inside Edge was just scouting company in Minnesota that at one point had 4 Driveline employees who were all former Inside Edge employees, where we all got our start. I started scouting there when I was in college, and it was an incredibly meaningful job to me, and like the first like baseball job that I'd ever had that wasn't like coaching or whatever. And one of the guys who was very high up at the company, who really sadly passed away 3 years ago, 2 years ago, was in the movie. He was an extra in the movie. And so every day at work, somehow it would come up that Ken Griffey Jr. drove him in. Because the big climactic scenes were Mariners against the Twins. And he was an extra and throughout. He was a minor league player at the time. And they had him throw on a Mariners jersey, because they didn't hire the whole Mariners team. They just hired Randy and Griffey.
And Lupinella.
Yeah, fair enough. And like, I heard about that all the time at that point in college as well. So I love that movie. Everything from like him getting ejected from the game and getting grounded by his mom, like it's all great.
It's a great movie. I got some Little Big League trivia for you.
There you
go. One of the players who is in the movie, basically kind of as an extra, was Leon Bull Durham.
Oh.
Okay. It gets weirder. Durham appears briefly in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He is the first baseman in the sequence when Braves outfielder Claudell Washington hits a foul ball caught by the eponymous character.
Interesting.
So you want to come right back around to like some seminal films. It's Bull Durham was in both.
Look at that.
All right, top 3.
Okay, this was 2 and 3 were really hard. I'm just not gonna lie. I could flip a coin and either, but we'll talk about Hardball first.
Okay.
I love this movie so much. Everything about it. From Keanu Reeves to Michael B. Jordan.
Yes, a young Michael B. Jordan. Forget.
The music was great. It's got comedy. It's got like, you're going to cry at the end of it.
Yeah.
I love that movie so much. And it's similar. It's the same concept as Bad News Bears, right? Like, or like another movie that I loved growing up, The Mighty Ducks, right? Guy gets forced to coach a team that he has no interest in coaching, whether it's because the court ordered him to or he needed money. He's like, I'm just going to show up and do the bare minimum. And then he falls in love with the kids and can't help but not do the bare minimum and like push them as far as he can go. The scene for me in that movie that makes it as beloved to me as it is when he takes them to the game, the Major League game.
It's so good.
Because it's like, that's when he realizes this is what it's about.
Yeah.
And like they had never gotten a chance to go to a big league game and watch a big league game. And just like the looks on their faces in that moment were just like, I've seen that movie a million times and I'm not going to forget like the looks on the happiness on their faces.
Yeah. I mean, it says a lot about representation and like the need for that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about kids and you're trying to make this thing real to them. It's like, I don't know. To me, it's kind of like the inverse of League of Their Own. You know, League of Their Own, it's like they had to be representation for themselves in that environment. Hardball is like they had to go and see it.
Right.
And if you don't have that opportunity, how does the whole dream seem real?
Right.
You know?
Right.
I just don't think it doesn't. Amusingly, Hardball had a soundtrack, a lot of R&B and rap related songs on it.
Yes, it did.
So I didn't know that I was playing this card, but you know the number 10 song on that soundtrack? Who did that song?
Mobb Deep.
Mobb Deep. Thank you very much. So unintentionally, For All the Killers and $100 Billers has brought us directly to this point where Hardball is the number 3 movie on our list. 48 Metacritic score, 5.6 audience. So like you guys need to get your numbers up because that's a way better movie than a 5.6 audience.
Yeah.
All right. So now we got to come to the climax.
All right. So number 2. And for those of you who don't know, I grew up a massive Cubs fan. Am no longer a fan of any team, really. Once you start working in baseball, kind of... your fandom of a specific team kind of goes out the window, which is okay. I was still outside of Wrigley when they won the World Series. So, I got like a closure for my fandom a little bit.
You got your credentials.
Growing up as a Cubs fan, all I wanted to do was break my arm. Because of Rookie of the Year.
Of course.
I definitely got caught multiple times rolling baseballs out into the yard and then trying to run over them and see if I could break my arm in the same way. There was no on-ramp.
No.
Whatsoever.
No. He
gets the
went
cast
straight...
off, gets tickets to a Cubs game, goes into the bleachers and fires that thing home. No on-ramp period, which is not safe.
No. Don't
and almost why I made this movie number 3 as opposed to number 2.
I mean, the workload, it's just got to be astronomical.
His workload was through the roof, right? Yeah. They're pitching him constantly.
Yeah, pulse numbers are real bad.
But, like, yeah, man, I love this movie.
Yeah.
And, like, it's got everything from, like, he's not really a stepdad. Like, the mom's boyfriend who's trying to abuse the kid.
Yeah.
And, like, use him for his own reasons. To like the Dan Hedaya character who's trying to trade him to the Yankees, to the old owner who has no idea what's going on and just like enjoys baseball, to the mom being the pitcher.
Yes.
Right at the end, like it's like, and he's like, oh my, she can be, and then, the ending where he loses his powers and still, gets to the base. When I was a kid, I was like, oh, you don't need to throw that hard.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can get outs on a baseball field. Like, there's a bunch of different ways to play the game.
Yeah, you're right.
As opposed to throwing it hard, which is really funny because, like, look, he threw a frozen rope from left field bleachers all the way to home plate, and he was throwing, like, 100. Right? Yeah. Like, when you see the radar guns, it's, like, 105. Like, yeah, it's Ben Joyce, right? Like, we have guys who throw just as hard, and I don't think could throw that kind of a frozen rope to the outfield. So I think they got the radar guns wrong. Probably should have been, like, 120. Especially off the bump, if he can throw a frozen rope from left field. But yeah, you have, like, the beginning of the movie, the kid is terrible at baseball. Loves baseball.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I never understood, and which, again, almost dropped it to 3. Yeah. Is like, yeah, you broke your arm and you could throw harder, but, like, how do you catch a ball now? You couldn't catch it earlier.
Yeah.
Like, how did that change? But it's like the confidence that you get from throwing hard is like, you can do anything.
That's true. That's true.
Right? He hits.
That's true.
He hits. He doesn't swing, but he hits.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I love that movie, and I watched it all the time as a kid.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Weirdly, you know who directed that movie?
No.
Daniel Stern.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly known as an actor, which some of you probably know as Marv from Home Alone.
From Home Alone. Although, my Phil Brigma, the pitching coach, the character that he plays in that movie, is maybe I don't know that there's anybody higher rated. There might be people at the same level, but like my personal favorite movie characters of all time.
Yeah, pretty great.
Like when he gets stuck in between the adjoining doors in the hotel, when he gets stuck in the tobacco closet, like just the hot ice. Do you know how many times I have used that in games when like a player's like my elbows and I'm just like, do you need me to get you some hot ice? And they just like stare at me like icy hot? No, hot ice, not icy hot.
You want some of that?
And they're like, sure, and I just like give them a water bottle. It's like, yeah, like it's I love his character in that movie.
It's a great movie.
As well as the coach who just cannot pronounce his name.
Yeah.
Which is always funny. And Gary Busey as like the maybe
that's right.
the closest to his real personality of just like a crazy old baseball guy who's just relentlessly hitting on this kid's mom.
I forgot about Busey in that movie.
He was Chet the Rocket Stegman.
Oh jeez. It's been too long.
It's a great one.
Stedman.
Gary
Busey.
He who throws his arm out.
Yeah.
Like is in pain at the beginning of the year and just like throws through it all the way to the end of the year when he's just like, yep, I just threw my entire arm out. But like, I think a part of me that got me with that movie when I was a kid so much is like he, like Henry Rowan-Gardner, the character, doesn't really mature throughout the movie. Yeah. He doesn't go through a growth process or like a maturation process.
Yeah.
Chet Stedman does.
You're right.
And he becomes like a much better person because this kid reminds him of why baseball's great and why he loves baseball. And he becomes like much less of a crusty asshole.
Yeah.
And like finds his love for baseball again through the kid.
Yeah.
And like, that's a good message.
You know what movie Gary Busey did after Rookie of the Year? You know what came out next?
Black Sheep.
Close. Surviving the Game, which for anybody that doesn't remember is the Ice-T movie about like hunting people.
Love it. Love it.
Oh, why did I watch such bad movies when I was a kid? All right, so that brings us to number one.
With a bullet point, and there's a decent gulf between number one and number
look,
two.
man, I'm just going to say, you got it right. You got it right. We got it right. This list is highly, highly, highly accurate, if for no reason other than the fact that the number one movie is the number one movie, which is The Sandlot. It's just the best baseball movie. It's just the best.
Yeah.
It's the best. If you want a kid to fall in love with this stupid game, you watch The Sandlot.
Yeah.
And to that end, it has one of the lower Metacritic scores. Don't care. It has one of the lower audience scores in this list. Don't care because it's not being reviewed by 7-year-olds who need to see the romanticism and the joy and the escape that this stupid game provides played out right in front of them. 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13-year-old kids need to see that.
It starts, well, maybe not starts, but like Smalls is one of his first interactions is like the voiceover saying they didn't even keep score. Yeah. Right? They weren't playing a game. Yeah. They didn't keep score. They just like did it.
They just played the game.
They just played the game.
And my second favorite thing about the movie, and you brought this up, so I don't want to steal the point, but is like the team that they're playing against.
The villains in the movie are a travel ball team. Just throwing it out there.
They legit are.
That is the stereotypical travel ball team. They're all wearing the same uniforms. Yeah. They show up. They're trying to have this like rigid structure around the game with the rules, and then you have like these guys who are just like doing it for the love of the game and having fun. Yeah. Right. It's like one group is, I'm definitely taking this too far, but like trying to get recruited and thinking like already taking it way too seriously. Yeah. At like 12, they're already taking baseball way too seriously. And the other group is just like, we're out there to hang out with our friends and have fun and like get Benny the Jet Rodriguez to the big leagues, right? Like that's it. The villains of that movie are a travel ball team, which is kind of hilarious. Yeah. Well, and a dog.
and a dog.
And James Earl Jones, I guess. Mean old Mr. Myrtle, who's not that mean.
Until he turns out.
But that's the thing is like you get through the whole movie thinking that like this beast is the villain and mean old Mr. Myrtle is the villain. And then you get there and he's like, they're both incredibly misunderstood. Yeah. And the real villain is like the baseball people. who have put him in a box and the kids in a box.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the best.
I mean, it's just it's everything. It's everything that I think we wish for in the game.
Yeah.
And it's played out on the screen, right? Like the equity that they find in the team construction, right? The kids, because the adults aren't there and the adults aren't trying to enforce control upon the system, they try to just like equitably distribute the talent. Right. And they know that Benny's the best kid on the field.
Right.
They know it.
Yep.
But it's like, all right, well, if that's what it's going to be, then like we're going to shift you here, you there.
And one of the first things that they say to Smalls when he goes is, do you remember what position they tell him to go to?
They send him to right, don't they?
They send him to left center.
Okay.
Because they only have 2-man outfield.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? So it's like, we don't have enough, and that's not going to stop us.
Yeah.
And like, we're training.
Yeah.
We're not even playing games. We're training. Like, the only thing that I can pick at is the workload of Kenny Nunez. Because nobody else got in the bump.
No.
So that he was burning his arm off. But
yeah.
Because of Kenny Nunez, I knew from a young age who the Kansas City Monarchs were.
Yes.
Because he wore
that's right.
He wore a Monarchs hat the whole movie, and it's like, that's a cool hat. Who is that?
Yep.
It says KC. Who is that? Like, most of the other kids are wearing either no logo hat or some random logo, or like Dodgers or Yankees.
Yeah.
And then you've got...
Or Smalls' terrible hat.
Hat that he gets rid of. And puts on a Dodger hat.
Yeah.
Or you have the Kansas City Monarchs hat.
Yeah. Which, again, representation, right? Like, it matters. It really matters a lot.
And what always shocked me when I was a kid was the idea that you could lose a baseball.
Yeah.
And then be dumb. Like, you didn't have extra baseballs.
Yeah.
Like, that was never a thing I ran into as a kid.
Yeah.
Was like, oh, man, we're done playing for the day. We got to go collect bottles just so we can get the money to...
Yeah.
That is... They loved playing baseball, and they would, like, do whatever it took.
Yep.
And, like, we talked 2 weeks ago about the choices you make in making sacrifices. Pool day. Mm-hmm. Who's the only one who doesn't want to go? It's super hot out, and they're all sitting in the dugout like, we don't want to play today.
It's not Smalls.
No, it's Benny the Jet.
Yeah, it's Benny. Yeah.
It's the one who makes the major leagues. He's like, no, like I can't miss a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have the opening thing is when Hamilton Porter's like, we don't need an extra guy. Like, we haven't been a full team since this guy moved away. We don't need like, you rotate positions or whatever. He's like, yeah, but now I can rotate 9 instead of 8.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't need any more practice. You're the best on the team. It's like, that kid had goals from an early age, clearly.
Yeah.
And like, I just, I'll form whatever narrative I need to out of this movie. I love this movie.
It's just the best one, man. I know
baseball at its purest.
I know that we have a lot of people to listen that have really young kids who probably aren't young enough to really apply some of the training stuff that we do, right? Because it's aimed basically at kids starting at age 9.
Yeah.
The one thing you can do is have your kids watch The Sandlot tonight.
Yep.
Wherever you are, today, this afternoon, tonight, you can sit down, you can pop some popcorn, you can pull the iPads and the cell phones away, you can pull the shades down, you can watch The Sandlot, and the odds that you're going to turn a kid into someone that loves this game in some way, shape, or form, I'd say are decently high.
Yeah, or that just immediately wants to go out and play catch with you.
Yes. Which, turn that flywheel over and over and over, you're going to turn into a kid that loves the game.
And worst case scenario, you might now have a kid who never wants to chew tobacco again.
Yeah,
or to start, right?
Facts. Yeah, I mean, Sandlot was just one of those movies that, it's just always in rotation. And again, my kid is going to be 16 in January. Like it's still in rotation. If we're on, if it's a Saturday night and we're going to get a chance to like sit down at the house as a family and watch a movie, and I'm going to want to watch something that like I want to watch, right? Like I finally made my son and my wife watch the part 2 of Dune.
Okay.
One of the best movies I've ever seen.
Great movie.
And that's fine, but like I know that if given his own up to his own devices, Danny's probably just going to choose Sandlot over and over and over again. And there's just something pervasive about the love that movie communicates, about the sense of community that you form, and the friendship and the bonds. And it's, it's like you see those pictures of like the guys that were cast in the Sandlot now, like they'll have them at the Dodger Stadium and they'll throw out first pitch every once in a while. I don't know if those dudes still hang out or still talk to each other, but they look like they get along just fine.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing, right? Like I went to the high school football game on Friday because Cora was cheering. So we went, and I see a friend of mine from way, way, way back in the day. We played soccer together for probably like 5-6 years. Shout out to Ty. And like, I'm always going to be good with that dude.
Yeah.
I'm always going to be good with that dude because we grew up playing this thing. Neither one of us are athletic in any way, shape, or form at this stage of our lives. Like I'm, getting close to my age 50, like full just a sweatsuit, tracksuit era. Like I'm going to do it. But I'm always good with that dude. And a lot of that just has to do with the fact that like we just spent a lot of time doing a thing when we were kids just for fun.
Yeah. And not to like, and I'm not old. I'm old adjacent, but I'm not old.
Yeah, you're not there yet.
But I still will watch that movie and wish kids today just picked up their bikes and opened up the front door and yelled, "Hey, Mom, going to play some baseball," close it, and just got on our bikes and left.
Yeah.
And like the scene to me in that movie that is like magical is the 4th of July.
Yeah, man.
With like just the song, the fireworks.
Yeah.
Them playing baseball, the wonder in their eyes when they're hitting the ball, like that's what it's about.
Yep.
And like I love that scene, and like if I could pick one baseball scene in any movie to just replay over and over again, it's that scene.
Yeah.
Even though it is not realistic, and someone is getting hit in the face with a fly ball because they have no way they're tracking that ball.
100%.
I love that scene, and like that's just it's not a thing that we can do anymore.
Yeah.
Like from the you don't really have kids picking up their bikes and going to hang out with friends.
Yeah.
All the way to the good luck finding a field that you don't get kicked off of because you didn't rent it.
Yeah.
Or reserve it,
Yeah. I don't know how you get some of that stuff back, man. I really don't. I mean, it's like we talked this morning about, some reconfiguration of training options in Academy. And, one of those things is moving away from, like a privatized version of like a hitting of a hitting thing. It's just kind of one-on-one versus a group. And in the group, you have the capacity to express in so much as you can some of this type of stuff. Yeah. Some of the stuff that we both know is like the romantic part about the Sandlot is doing a thing together. And it's funny to me that just like parents on the one hand will like, oh, we want to bring back the Sandlot. We want to bring back this era of being able to jump on a bike and go to a field. But a lot of times, man, our actions as parents, and I will include myself in that, don't necessarily line up with like the thing that we have this incredibly fond remembrance for.
Some for good reasons, and some for just not the best reasons.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just such a. It's a movie that you can't not feel good after. You're just got to feel good about it.
There's no pressure on any of those kids.
Nope.
They're doing it because that is the best way they can find to spend their time.
Yeah. And in so much as it matters, look, Benny the Jet is just like the best player on that field. I think, for you and me, I think the only thing that we would want to see is equity of the opportunity for those other kids to develop for the things to get to things that Benny had. Well, and I think you could argue like that's kind of what they've got in so much as relative to the opportunity and tools that they have.
Right. And like there's a couple of things there, right? Like so Benny is the reason that Smalls is allowed there.
Yes.
Right? He's an L7 weenie. Like they don't want him playing, and Benny's like, no, like we need an extra guy, whatever. Hits him a ball, looks terrible, runs the ball all the way back in, and still does not give up on this kid.
Yep.
And like if it wasn't the best player, nobody Squints isn't standing up for him for that, and everyone's listening to Squints, right? Like, that is really a message that still holds up today, right? Like if you are the most talented player on your team, you have an outsized impact, outsized voice on and influence on the rest of the team to take some of these lesser players under your wing and just like, even if you're not going to make them better, you're going to make them feel good.
Yeah.
Even if you're not going to make them better at baseball, you're going to make them feel good. and feel included. And like that alone is going to make them better at baseball. They're going to try a little harder.
Yep.
Because nobody wants to be the weak link on a team.
Yeah.
Once you get on a team, you don't want to be that weak link. Yeah. So allowing him onto the team was big there. But also like every team, my team of 16 and 18-year-olds, whoever, you are going to have kids who have different goals. Mm-hmm. Benny the Jet's goal is to play Major League Baseball.
Yep.
Nobody else on that team really had that goal. And it wasn't stated, but you could tell in their actions that like, and they made comments like, he clearly cared way more than any of the rest of them. And like, that didn't change his relationship with them. Yeah. He didn't view them as less than because they didn't want it as bad as he did.
Yeah.
They didn't view him as arrogant or square or whatever because he cared so much about this thing. And it's like shows a real team dynamic that I think can be lost at the youth level with like, hey, we got 4 kids on this. Like, not one youth team is going to have, I shouldn't say not one. Very, very, very few youth teams are going to have 9 kids who go play Division I baseball. You're going to have kids with different goals and like varying success in their achievement of those goals.
Yeah.
And like a lot of times that can lead to some tension. Yeah. Or, we've heard my kid doesn't want to play with these kids because they're not as good. And it's like, well, where do you want to go? Yeah. Like, there's not a team out there that's going to have a full team of kids who care as much as your kid. Or that want it as bad as you think your kid does or whatever it is. And like, that is represented in that movie with like, Benny wants it more. Benny is better. Yep. But he doesn't fault the rest of the guys for just doing it because they love it and they're having fun doing it.
No, he accepts him. He brings them with him.
Right. Yeah. And like that's because like I was Smalls, right? Like I wasn't actually I was Squints. I had the glasses. That was like Squints was the one I identified with. Yeah. Even though for some reason I really wanted to be Yeah. I thought he was the coolest, but like Squints was the one I knew in my heart that I was. Yeah. Right. And like I didn't identify with Benny the Jet. He was way better. Yeah. Like I wasn't that, but like I had friends who were like Benny the Jet, and like I was playing my role. I was Squints. Yeah. Other than the lifeguard thing, didn't do that. But like everything else, like hey, everybody's got a role in this team. Everybody is important. Yeah. Not just the guy who's the best. And like that. Yeah. Yeah, that feeling. And I just love that movie, man.
Yeah, and again, it's not a coach that's kind of dictating that strategy.
There is no coach. There is no adult.
Yep, that's right.
Zero adult supervision in that entire movie. Even the other travel ball team.
Yeah, true.
They're showing up with no coach too, which is great.
True. All right. I got to get into another meeting. We hit number 1. We landed in the right place. It's the best baseball movie ever, period, point blank, end of story. It's The Sandlot. If you have a contradictory opinion, apologies, but you're just wrong.
Yeah, I have a garbage can that we can put your opinion in.
Yeah, we can throw that in the trash. We'll even recycle if we're going to be ecologically.
It's true. Depends on how you give us your opinion.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you guys for joining us in this one-off, allowing a couple
very long
baseball nerds, movie nerds to like conflate both of our things and talk about that. Axpot.com, code DL20, Dynamic Leopard to get you 20% off. Academy Flex, Youth Under List, Smash Bet, Power Bet. We have all the things. DrivelineBaseball.com, 425-523-4030. Next week, we'll talk maybe about the IMTP stuff. We'll talk about athletic development because we got some insights there that I think we might just be the only place in the world that we've got these type of insights. True. So we'll use this platform to talk about it. He is Jeremy. I am Devin. We are Down by Law. Catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.